Spurs' blowout loss just revealed who's actually ready, and the answer is not who most fans expected walking into Summer League. San Antonio dropped their opener 93-66 to Atlanta at the Thomas & Mack Center, the kind of ugly, lopsided scoreline that usually gets brushed off as a meaningless exhibition result. Except buried inside that blowout was a genuinely important storyline about the player San Antonio is counting on most to take a leadership leap this season, and how he responded when everything went wrong in front of him. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what went sideways in that opener, who actually stepped up despite the final score, and why one very rough shooting night might end up being one of the more encouraging developments of the entire summer. If you're new here, subscribe right now. Seriously, it takes 2 seconds and it really helps me out a lot. And after you subscribe, leave a comment letting me know if you think Carter Bryant will bounce back on Saturday, because I read every single one. San Antonio wants Carter Bryant to grow as a leader this offseason, and it became clear almost immediately that he is taking that responsibility seriously, even though the way he had to prove it was not exactly the way anyone would have scripted it. Bryant struggled badly in his Summer League debut, and instead of hiding from that struggle, he held himself accountable for it in a way that says a lot about where his head is at heading into a pivotal second season. In that debut, Bryant scored all 12 of his points in the second half, which means the first half was rough enough to be worth talking about on its own. He went 0 for 5 from the field and 0 for 4 from three-point range before halftime. A genuinely cold start for a player San Antonio is hoping takes on a bigger offensive role this season. "I feel like I had to knock the rust off a little bit," said Bryant, the 14th overall pick of the 2025 NBA draft. "I ain't played a basketball game since Game 5 of the finals." That quote alone tells you something important about the layoff Bryant was dealing with, and it sets up exactly why what he said next matters so much more than the missed shots themselves. Here is the part of this story that should genuinely change how people view this performance, because it was not actually the shooting that had Bryant frustrated afterward. "I had 4 turnovers," said Bryant, who ran the offense for much of the time he was on the court. "I'm missing coverages defensively. I'm not being as intense defensively. I just gotta be better on that side of the basketball. Offense is gonna come, as it did in the second half, but losing is unacceptable, especially like that for this franchise." Notice what Bryant chose to focus on there. Not the air balls, not the shooting slump. He went straight to turnovers, defensive coverages, and the loss itself. For a 20-year-old talking to reporters after a rough individual night, that is not a small detail. That is exactly the kind of self-assessment a franchise hopes to hear from a young player it is grooming for a bigger role. Bryant had real excuses available to him too, and he chose not to use a single one of them. In addition to having to shake off months of rust, Bryant was also essentially playing alongside a roster of unfamiliar teammates, a Summer League reality that trips up plenty of young players every year. He still finished 4 of 13 from the field and 1 of 7 from beyond the arc, numbers that would be easy to explain away. Instead, he simply committed to getting better. Summer Spurs coach Corliss Williamson backed that up, and his comments reveal exactly what the coaching staff is actually watching for with Bryant right now, which has almost nothing to do with the box score. Williamson pointed out that Bryant got a jump on that improvement simply by playing better once the second half started. San Antonio never actually led in the game and turned the ball over 23 times as a team, a number that directly fed Atlanta's offense and led to 26 points off those turnovers alone. Against that backdrop, Bryant flipping the switch after halftime carried real weight. "He came out and set the tone for us defensively early in the second half," Williamson said. "For his first game back, there's still a little rust there, so it was just good for him to be out on the court and get a feel for the game again. We know he'll be better next game." Now here is where this story connects to something the Spurs coaching staff has been saying about Bryant for weeks, and it explains exactly what San Antonio actually values about this specific stretch of his development. Williamson reiterated the same message he delivered at the Summer Spurs minicamp back in San Antonio roughly a week earlier. The Spurs made a deliberate decision to hold Bryant out of the California Classic entirely, choosing to play him only in Las Vegas, which meant he was not with the team during its winless 0-3 stretch in San Francisco. That is a notable roster management choice on its own, and it tells you San Antonio was being intentional about exactly when and how Bryant got his Summer League reps. "The areas I want to see him improve in is his leadership," Williamson said. "He's done that in the practices he's been in. Now he just has to start the game off setting the tone defensively for us, to get us going. And then his decision-making needs to improve. Decision, shot-making, just trying to give him opportunities to play in different spots he won't play in during the regular season and see if he can improve in those areas." That framing matters enormously for how San Antonio is using this entire Summer League stretch. This is not really about Bryant proving he can score against overmatched competition. It is about testing his decision-making, his leadership voice, and his ability to operate in spots on the floor he will not see once the regular rotation kicks in come October. A rough shooting night inside that kind of developmental sandbox matters a lot less than how a player responds to it in real time. And Bryant's response, according to his own coach, went beyond just what happened between the lines. In addition to owning his struggles publicly, Bryant also showed real leadership by staying vocal throughout the game, including during stretches when he was sitting on the bench rather than on the floor. The more he can grow his voice, the more he can look at the game from a different aspect as far as being a leader and helping others. That's just going to help him improve, Williamson said. That is precisely the trait San Antonio identified as a priority for Bryant entering this offseason. And getting a visible example of it just one game into Summer League, even inside a lopsided loss, is exactly the kind of small, early signal a coaching staff looks for before the games start actually counting towards something. Zoom out from Bryant for a second, though, because the box score from this game tells a much bigger story about San Antonio's entire young core, and one specific matchup inside it should matter a great deal to Spurs fans who have been following this roster closely. 7 different Atlanta players scored in double figures that night, led by second-year forward Asa Newell with a team-high 15 points, which says plenty about how thoroughly San Antonio's defense struggled as a group. But the game had real bright spots buried inside the final score, and one of them ties directly back to a storyline this channel has already been tracking closely all summer. First-round forward Taurus Reed Jr. turned in another rugged, high-effort performance, finishing with 14 points and 10 rebounds for the Connecticut alumnus San Antonio selected 26th overall. Bryant himself was quick to credit him afterward. "He's a hell of a player. Very smart," Bryant said of Reed. Now, here comes the payoff that fans who watched San Antonio's earlier Summer League matchups have genuinely been waiting for, because it involves a rematch we already told you to circle on your calendar. If you remember, Gillespie and Flemings faced off before as college opponents in a genuine classic, and this was the professional version of that same rivalry, except this time the stakes were about NBA roster spots instead of college rankings. Second-round point guard Ja'Kobi Gillespie put together arguably the best all-around performance on the floor for San Antonio, finishing with 12 points and a team-high 6 assists. But the number that actually matters most here is the one attached to his opponent. Gillespie helped lead a defensive effort that held Kingston Flemings, the former Houston Cougars standout and San Antonio Brennan product selected 8th overall by Atlanta, to just 5 points on the night. Think about what that actually means, given everything we already knew heading into this matchup. Flemings still managed a game-high 8 assists against just a single turnover, proving his playmaking translates immediately at this level. But as a scorer, he was completely locked down, finishing just 2 of 7 from the field. Gillespie, undrafted rookie guard RJ Davis, and the rest of San Antonio's defenders made every single one of those shot attempts difficult. "I thought Gillespie just did a good job of trying to get into the basketball and making it difficult for him," Williamson said. "I thought we defended well tonight, except for the fact we couldn't score and we turned the ball over. That definitely hurt our defense." Gillespie, for his part, made sure to credit the whole group rather than take individual credit for shutting down a lottery pick. "He's just a really good player," Gillespie said of Flemings. "I think we all wanted to take on that challenge in trying to guard him. here is why all of this actually matters heading into next season, beyond just one messy exhibition scoreline in July. San Antonio's front office is not evaluating Summer League based on wins and losses. They are evaluating it based on exactly the things Williamson described: leadership growth, decision-making under pressure, and whether specific players can handle real responsibility before the games start to count. On that specific scorecard, this loss actually produced real, tangible positives. Bryant answered adversity by owning his mistakes publicly and taking over in the second half. Gillespie backed up his earlier breakout performances by neutralizing a top 10 pick almost entirely on his own. Reed continued building a case for real rotation minutes as a rebounding, high-motor big man. None of that shows up in a 93-66 final score, and it is exactly the kind of nuance that gets lost when people only look at the box score. A blowout loss in July means almost nothing for San Antonio's actual record. Development, on the other hand, compounds. A rookie who learns to own his mistakes in front of reporters in July is a rookie more likely to do the same thing in a film session in January. A second-round guard who proves he can shut down a lottery pick in an exhibition game is a guard who has already answered one of the biggest questions standing between him and a real roster spot. The consequence of a night like this rarely shows up immediately. It shows up months later, when a coaching staff is deciding who earns real trust in October, and they remember exactly which young players responded the right way after a bad night in July rather than folding under it. San Antonio walked out of a 27-point loss with a clearer picture of at least 3 players who are handling that test the right way, and that is worth far more to this franchise's long-term plans than the final score from one Summer League opener ever will be.